if you've found, but I've found that granola in the stores is number one, really pricey. Number two, it's full of fat and full of sugar. So we're going to make a simple granola recipe that, yes, it has some fat, yes, it has some sugar, but it's going to be low in those things. And it takes like 30 minutes to make. You can go ahead and throw it together first thing in the morning. If you're an early bird, you can make it and have it warm and ready for breakfast. And it's much less expensive than buying granola at the store. You get one of these little tiny packages, and it's super expensive. Yeah, we're gonna put some nuts in it. That might be a little pricey, but nothing like that store-bought granola that you've been buying. And let's face reality, there's nothing better with your plant-based milk or whatever milk you like to use, some berries or some yogurt, whatever you like, and granola. You have to have some granola with it, right? So granola is one of those breakfast staples that's super healthy and super delicious if you know how to do it right. So today we're gonna get started, and we're gonna go ahead and get a pot. So we're going to warm a couple of things before we actually make our granola. One of those things is going to be some maple syrup. This I get from Sam's Club. It's organic, it's all natural, and this is a very delicious natural sweetener that comes from maple trees, no less. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our maple syrup, and we're going to use about half a cup. So we're going to get our half a cup. We're going to fill it with maple syrup. This is going to give our granola a very nice maple flavor. We're going to put that in our pot. By warming these wet ingredients, it helps them soak into the dry ingredients and overall flavor your granola all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and try to get all the last drips of maple syrup in here. And then we have some coconut oil. Now, this is not necessarily a must, but it does make it toast a little better. So we're going to use about 2 to 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons. Like I say, you can omit it if you do. You might want to use some nut butter or something like that, even some applesauce if you need more liquid. But it does make for a delicious, crunchy granola. And like I say, it's still less than what you would find in the store. So I'm going to grab a spoon over here. That's about a tablespoon. And then I'm going to grab, say, 1 more tablespoon. I will admit that this recipe is inspired by one on the Minimalist Baker, but I have made a few adaptations, including lowered the fat content and so forth. So we have about 2 tablespoons here, and that's going to help the granola toast. Like I say, this is optional if you want a completely no oil option. Now, the other thing is we have some vanilla. This is actually simply organic Madagascar vanilla. It is non-alcoholic. You'll find that most of your grocery store vanilla either is artificial flavored or it's extracted in alcohol. And so if you want a non-alcoholic, this is the one I recommend. Now, it is true that most of the alcohol probably does evaporate when it's baking, but just in case, we want to go as natural and healthy as possible. Now, you're going to have to give me a minute to get this one open. Here we go. And we're going to use a teaspoon of vanilla. I don't know about you, but I love vanilla. There's also a powdered vanilla form that you can use, but in this particular recipe, we need all the liquid we can get to make our granola nice and sticky, like we like it. Now, don't worry, it won't be sticky when it bakes, but we want the granola before it's baked to be sticky so that it will kind of clump together and make those nice granola clusters that you're used to seeing. Now, if you do want your granola more less clustery, more separated, you can do that also. Just means you'll turn it a few times when you're baking. Now, we're going to go ahead and mix these things together. We had coconut oil, maple syrup, and vanilla. We're going to go ahead and warm these, and then when this is warm, we will go ahead and put 2 mashed bananas in here. So we're gonna go ahead, warm this until the coconut oil melts, and until it gets kind of warm. We don't wanna boil it, just warm it slightly, and then we will mash our banana. So we'll be right back. I'm back. And guess what? We just warmed our maple syrup, vanilla, and a little bit of coconut oil. Remember, we used about 2 tablespoons, and it is exuding this wonderful vanilla flavor. Now, I don't know about you, but I love vanilla. If you don't love vanilla, you don't have to use it, but I absolutely love vanilla. Now, we're gonna go ahead and get our dry ingredients together. We're gonna do that over here. We're gonna start with rolled oats. I buy my rolled oats in bulk. You can get your Quaker rolled oats, whatever it is, but we wanna use the traditional cut. You can make granola using quick oats, but this particular recipe does best if you're using traditional rolled oats. We're gonna start with about 3 cups. Here we go, 1, 2, and 3. So that's gonna be our start. We'll probably add another cup as we go. Then we have some flaxseed. We're gonna put in about a tablespoon of flaxseed, and this is very high in fiber. It is also adds a nice flavor, but definitely it's high in fiber, and so that's really healthy. And so that's why we're putting this flaxseed in, and it also works as a binder. I don't know if you have tried using flax egg, where you grind up flaxseed and use it as a binder in baked goods, like in cakes and things. Well, it has that binding property kind of like egg, but it also is high in fiber, so it adds a wonderful addition here, and you can barely notice it. It sort of disappears into your oats. And then we have our sugar. We're gonna use a little bit of sugar, not too much. You can use only maple syrup if you prefer. You can add some honey. In that case, then you would add some more dry ingredients since you're adding more liquid. But I like to use this all natural pure cane sugar. It's non-GMO, and it is certified vegan. Not all sugar is vegan, so you want to make sure your sugar is vegan if you are trying to stay vegan. And we're going to use about 3 tablespoons. You can do 4, but I'm good with 3. And this is just an additional sweetener. Now, we are going to notice that most of the sweetness comes from the bananas. So this is actually banana bread granola, or banana flavored granola. And so it actually kind of has that banana bread flavor and the banana bread spices. And not only that, but we're also able to use less sugar. You see 3 tablespoons for a batch of granola is not much sugar. We had some maple syrup, yes, it's true. But then our third sweetener is our bananas. And we are going to add some nuts in this dry ingredients. We've got some pecans, some walnuts. If you're allergic to a certain type of nut, you can use a different nut, or some sunflower seeds are good in granola, but particularly in this recipe, I love some pecans and walnuts. You can use about a ½ cup each, or even 3/4 of a cup. Let's see what we've got here. We're going to start with a ½ cup each, see how that looks. If we want some more, we'll add some more. If you like your nuts chopped, you can chop your nuts. If you like whole nuts, I'm going to go ahead and break a few of these nuts since the pecans are quite large. You can do a large cut on them if you prefer, but I like some wholes, some halves, whatever you like is good. And that's our dry ingredients. Now, with our wet ingredients, we're going to go ahead and mash 2 bananas. These are very ripe bananas. You want them to be very speckled, because the riper they are, the sweeter they are. So we're going to go ahead and mash these bananas up. You don't want them to be brown inside, but you want them to be definitely speckled outside. So we've got banana number 1, and here's our second banana. You can use just yellow bananas, but they are fully ripe when they get speckled. That's when they're sweetest, and we are looking for the bananas to sweeten this granola. So we're just gonna give them a quick mash. Now remember, we still have our hot maple syrup combination there, our vanilla flavored maple syrup with a little bit of oil. And we're going to mix this banana into that warm maple syrup, and that's gonna make this banana with the maple syrup into a nice frothy kind of mixture here. We're gonna mix it up so that it's nice, and you can use a whisk for this if you prefer. I'm using a fork right now. You're gonna mix it well, and then we're just gonna pour it over the oats. Now you want the banana to be well mashed, but it's all right if there are some clumps. You will get some clumps in your granola if you have some banana clumps. Now there is one more thing we need to add to the dry ingredients before we mix these two. And this is our coriander and cardamom. These are a great alternative to cinnamon. If you do use cinnamon, that is perfectly fine. But we're going to use coriander and cardamom today. And we are going to use about 2 parts coriander to 1 part cardamom. So we are going to use about a half a teaspoon of coriander. Let's see what that does. That's a quarter. That's another quarter. So we have half a teaspoon of coriander, and we have a quarter teaspoon of cardamom. Cardamom is a little strong. Now if you do want to use cinnamon, you can use about a half teaspoon of cinnamon. But like I say, I prefer this coriander and cardamom mixture. And it gives it a nice kind of spicy flavor. You can even go with some nutmeg if you want to go very, a full range of spice, I guess you could say. But this does it for me. And we're going to add a little bit of salt just to take off to enhance the flavor, as they say, right? To not let it be bland. And we're gonna go ahead and mix this and see how it does. We wanna make sure all this sauce gets onto our granola. So I'm gonna go ahead and take some of the dry ingredients and put them in my pot so that they'll pick up some of that maple syrup. You don't want any of that maple syrup to go to waste. Now if it seems wet to you, you can go ahead and add at this point 1 more cup of oats and any more nuts that you'd like. You can add raisins to this, or if you don't want your raisins to dry out, you can add your raisins after this is cooked. So I'm gonna say that this is a little wet. I'm gonna move this over so you guys can see. This is a little wet, so we're gonna add about another cup of oats. So at this point, we did 3 cups of oats at the beginning, 1 cup of oats now. And we want it to be wet, but not super wet. So you want it to be a nice consistency where everything is evenly coated. There's no parts that are dry, but it's not super sticky wet. So this looks real nice. I'm gonna add a few more pecans, a few more walnuts, just to top it off. And then we're going to put this on a baking sheet. Now, we're not gonna oil our baking sheet. We're gonna go ahead and put parchment paper on it. If you want to oil your baking sheet and you don't have parchment paper, that's a perfectly fine way to go too. Just using a regular large size cookie sheet. And you'll stick this in the oven. You want it to be evenly distributed so that it bakes evenly. And this is a delicious breakfast. Like I said, you can have it with some berries in the morning with some plant-based milk. Almond milk is my favorite personally. And even you can top it on some chia pudding or some coconut yogurt, something, whatever your favorite is. However you like to eat granola, This is a delicious granola. And like I say, that banana adds so much flavor to it. So it's not just your regular store-bought granola. You can do other kinds of granola too, but this is my personal favorite. Going forward, you might see some other granolas. I love granola, but so far, I absolutely love this one. So this is how it looks before it's baked. We have what looks like sticky oats that are dry with all that flavorful goodness of the vanilla, the banana, and everything that we put on it, and our nuts. Now we are going to go ahead and bake it at 350, and it's for about half an hour, 23 to 28 minutes. I go about 30 minutes. But you don't want it to dry out because it will dry out a little more after it cooks. So you don't want it to look like it's a really dry granola because once it cools, it will dry out a little bit more. So we're going to take this, bake it at 350 for about half an hour. You can flip it halfway through if you want, and this is ready to go.